And I want to start with, where are you? Where are you? This is a map of all the different theories and places that you consider where you actually are, where your consciousness is, where your center is. I did a pretty deep dive into this called Locating the Soul. I wish I could just sort of input it here, but it just takes a while to cover. But it's just this argument over, where's the pinpoint of me? Where is my assemblage point? Am I knowledge? Am I awareness? Am I sentience? Am I consciousness? Am I intelligentness? Am I instinctiveness? Am I emotion? Am I creativity? And I certainly don't want to say that you can only pick one, because you don't. But when you're trying to place the needle of the soul in a certain location, this somewhere on this map is where you start to play pin the tail on the donkey, right? And hey, we can all be a jackass, which is, again, part of the understanding. You understand this stuff. And so who and what we are is really up to you. I'm telling you, as a starting point that you can dismiss right away, that life is a sentimental diary of action potentials, little zaps in your neurons that are passed through an hourglass brigade of potassium, a toll booth where only certain signals are going to go, and only certain signals are going to be allowed if they have enough clout, if they're coming from a place in your body that's developed enough clout to where your system decides, well, we're going to build you a friggin' off-ramp because where you live is important. And that communities are formed inside your neurology. They're formed inside our bodies, and these communities are called agency, and this agency competes for selfhood. And that what we call life is not really the same thing as what we call consciousness. These two things are a little bit different. We're going to see that. But the reptile lives in the realm of life. He fits the definition perfectly. And even today, if you open up any medical journal, they're going to tell you death is that moment at which the body's physiological system ceases to constitute an integrated whole. Death is not a destruction. Purely by this definition, death is not a destruction. Death is the loss of an integrated whole. It is the dropping of the canopy. It is not the ending of life. So even our concept of what death is not what we think it means. That the moment life ceases, the corporation of you is what ceases to be. It discombobulates, it separates from itself, right? So you are not something that dies. You are a gestalt that has a closure ceremony. That the parts themselves you actually do not control. You cannot control you do not get to tell the stomach, hey man, I'm dying. You're gonna have to die. The stomach's like, I don't even know who you are. You have no authority over me. I live here. This is my land. This is my street. If you want to call yourself a town, that's fine. If you want to not call yourself a town, that's fine. But I've got a fort, man. I've got a militia, got a tank. I'm my own entity. I only agreed to this country because, frankly, you were offering the right kind of bribery to me to conglomerate. It was a symbiotic relationship I had with you, and we called ourselves a country together, and we're not that anymore. But nothing's really changed on the ground. Nothing's actually different when you start to look at these different organisms, these different agencies that are operating within you. And it's hard for you to even fathom that because you were at a central place, right? You were at the board of directors. Therefore, we must remember that our civilization measures death on the ability for any entity to respond to being poked with a stick. I swear to you, that is the entire form of what we define life as. If I poke you and you complain, you are alive. And if I poke you and you do not complain, you're not alive. That is how we even determine coma patients, by that same kind of criteria. We lose the meaning of consciousness in this simplification, which is fine because we never really had a close narrowing down even of what it is. We just sort of just went on. We've just sort of moved on from it all. But at the root of this all, my friends, if you spend enough time thinking about this, I think you're going to find the same thing that I did, which is that pain and sentience are the same thing. Are reptiles emotionally intelligent? Yes, they are. Emotional intelligence is a function of survival. Therefore, anything that survived is going to have some sort of limbic emotional intelligence to it. There are a list of 8 scientifically proven emotions. Believe it or not, we can actually prove these emotions in a lab: anxiety, distress, excitement, fear, frustration, pain, stress, and suffering. And if you do the math and you're like, wow, that sounds pretty fucking bleak there. It's like, yeah, it is. These are some bleak emotions. These are like, hey, what would you like for dinner tonight? Oh, we have a fine offering of 8 wonderful things from the garden. Oh, 8 wonderful things from the garden. It sounds good. Well, let me have them. Well, we have anxiety. I don't know about that. We have distress. Oh, it doesn't sound so. We have excitement. Well, maybe, right? And you run down this list and you're like, suffering? You're going to offer me suffering after all this? It's like, yes, it is a fine motor skill. And when you trace this back, you have to do the math. You can either A, believe the whole world is about suffering. You can do that. I have no fine. Or you can say, hey, the whole world is about suffering. You can actually do that. You can say that an acorn a long time ago was like, man, I want more. I'm not afraid of the world. I'm an acorn and I want to sense more. I'm going to put out some limbic stalks and I'm going to learn how to feel bitterness. I'm going to learn how to feel bitter. And now when squirrels come by, I'm going to notice if they have a bitter attitude today. And that acorn develops the limbic ability to discern, and that the thing that it learns to discern is pain. And we only call it pain. We only associate it with pain because it is in that hertz. It's in that megahertz, no pun intended, but hey, if it's there, you're going to take it, right? But it's in that hertz where it showcases what it is. The reason why we call it pain is because it's something that we've had to struggle to interpret. That you and I had to agree a long time ago that says, hey, I'm going to tap into my stomach and I'm going to allow him to send me pain. That I'm going to set this up where I'm like, stomach, I'm going to wire myself directly to your I'm pissed wires. And that by doing this, you and I are entering into what? A contractual agreement with a self-destructive mechanism on both sides. And as we start to look at what I'm describing, you could either call it a mafia blackmail cult or symbiosis. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You could argue that the mafia families, which really established the federal government long before the federal government did, in fact, federal government is just a mafia family that just happened to get there first, have always known the truth of how our bodies work, that there are impossible for you to exist in the world by you declaring yourself an organ and just putting out good vibes. And you're just like, I'm just a good vibe organ. I'm just here to put out good vibes. Oh, it's your good vibium is hurting. Yeah, I need to get it fixed. Every organ has to establish some sort of dominance, some sort of cease and desist. It's the opposite of majority rule. It's the idea that I can stop this entire fucking machine. I will bring this whole place down if you guys do not listen to me. And that each organ says, okay, what do you got? It's like, I got epinephrine. I got epinephrine, motherfuckers. And I'm not afraid to use it. And the rest of the system's like, oh, Jesus. Someone gave this guy a gun. Someone let him in. And now he's in charge. And the delicate sound of thunder that is you is all of these armies, all of these mafia armies that have joined forces and said, we're a crime family now. We're a crime family because we can exist in the world. So the pain is new territory Every sense experience that you have, starting with your nose, was a desperate attempt for you to claim new territory, to claim new turf in the world, to say, I can claim this now. And the first thing it's going to do is cost you. You're going to have to get out on the street. You're going to have to show your muscle. You're going to have to take some heat. And it's all coming through this sensation of pain. So the emergence of sentience is the sacrifice on the altar of pain. And that you can see the truth of God, but you're going to have to stare directly into a gamma ray. You're going to have to open your pupils directly to the sun and let it completely destroy the filaments itself that are, check it out, separating you from it. And that by you staring directly into the sun, as the sun is teeming and destroying all of these wiring, the reason why it's destroying it is not because it's cutting off your connection, but it is because it is swallowing you whole. You are tasting the essence of sun, no differently than you were tasting the essence of fire, no differently than you were tasting the essence of asphyxiation. All of these experiences of death are you absorbing a gamma ray that is simply so painful that you lose your corporation. Your corporation dissolves. That's really all that's happening. That's it. Analgesia is the concept in medicine of the ability to ignore pain. And so from the very first start, from the very first time that we come out of the shell, so to speak, and to venture into new reality, we are gambling with the idea of, can I stomach this pain, or can I ignore the feelings that this pain brings me? I want the sensory experience, but I also do not want the pain itself, the sensation itself, to blur my identity. And so when you look at what modern medicine is, think about this. Listen as you read this, as you hear this. Pain medication mutes our sentience by removing our ability to decrypt the information that is contained inside pain. That your muscle hurts because it is giving you vital information about a state that it is in. It is telling you bad news, and you're the one that's calling the news bad. You were calling the news bad because you're like, holy shit, what do I do? This is triage. I don't know how to handle this. And you're the one that says my arm is in pain. And that's actually not really what's happening. Your arm is doing wonderful. Your arm is doing its job. It's dictating to you every single bit of information that you need to make a logical decision. But you are finding their shouting to be untenable. You're cutting off your compassion. Do you hear that? You're cutting off your compassion for the signals that are coming in. And you're saying, this hurts. You're saying, on top of all the things that are you going on in your arm, there's now another problem. And the arm's like, well, what's the other problem? And it's like, the problem is I am finding this information to be disturbing. And the arm's like, you fucking dick. You were such an asshole. I am the one hurting. All you have to do is hear the information. And you're telling me that you're not willing to hear the information because it sounds like bad news. How many of you know people in your life that respond to you this exact same way? where you are, fuck, I've lost people from my life because I had the nerve, here's the pun. God, I'm taking that one too. Ding, ding. Because you had the nerve to express your pain. You have the nerve to tell someone, I have critique for you. We have really messed up here and I've got a problem. And that the sentient robot is destroying the reptile by saying, that pain hurts. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. This is at the heart of inflammation. This is at the heart of why your body doesn't trust you. If you think about, what is your arm going to do the next time it hurts? When it comes to you, God bless you, but when you were 5, when you were 7, right? And your arm would be like, holy shit, my arm really hurts. And you're just like, you're throwing a tantrum. You're just like, 5 will just scream and melt the universe around me. That'll fix it. And your arm's just like, well, that's really powerful, kid. But yeah, you have no idea I'm hurting, but the pain's still there. And so in a way, we learn inflammation. We learn how to inflame because inflammation would simply be the absence of association that was once there. For your cells to grow in a certain place, a certain sentience had to be installed in them to attach them to an agency. A surveyor had to come by and say, we're going to put the sewer here. A mailman came by and said, you can put a mailbox here. The power company came by and said, well, we'll run the power here. And the internet came by and said, we'll do it here. And if your property's in the right location, if all these things are met, your cell is connected. It is symbiotically attached to the world, and that your sentience comes online, and that same sentience is blocked when you're injured because the injury has so much information. The gamma rays have so much vibration to them that you, the dispatcher, decides it hurts. That's all pain really is. And so the very birth of consciousness is the very recognition of the most beautiful thing that you've ever noticed before. I swear to you. One day you said, I'm an acorn and I want to touch more. I want to sense more. I want to limbically connect more. And you grew an ion channel, a protein receptor. And the protein receptor was able to detect a chemo signal. And the only way it could tell you that the chemo signal was found was by shouting, and that's all it could do. And it was this, holy fuck. And if you've ever seen anyone who gets an ear implant installed the first time, they're just like, it's very painful for them. Maybe you haven't seen this. It's very painful for them. It's, first of all, it's an emotional roller coaster you should watch. I should have a clip, but it's very painful for them. The sound sounds like static and sounds like stinging pain, electrical stinging pain, they describe it as. Why? Because they're, for the very first time, we have someone who has language installed that is giving you a step-by-step, play-by-play of what it fucking feels for the very first time to, hey, what happens if you plug, oh my God, the lights are on. Oh, I can't see shit. And for the very first time, a 30-year-old person who's never had their lights on is now has the full lights on. And the reaction is what? Pain. It's pain. And the voice sounds awful. They cannot recognize their loved one yet. It sounds awful. The system is coming online and it sounds awful. Why? Here's what's fascinating. The reason why is because your hearing can hear your heartbeat. Your hearing can hear the electrical transactions, that, the modem sound, blang, 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 blang. It's like that. It's hearing these signals that it's never heard before, and it hasn't learned how to turn them off. It hasn't learned how to filter them. It's like, I hear the most excruciating white noise I've ever had. Tinnitus is an example of this, where we hallucinate it as a bell in our head simply because what else do I do with this information? I'm associated with this little hammer. This little hammer will not shut the fuck up. It's probably hearing Wi-Fi. It's probably like there's a Scooby-Doo movie downloading and I can hear it. And you're just like, God, that fucking hurts like fuck. And it's like, yeah, it hurts. It hurts because you're sentient. And the only reason why you're sentient is because you have experienced all of this hurt. All of this hurt is the birth of all of your passion. Pleasure is pain operating above the axis of discomfort. Pleasure is pain. Pleasure is pain. It's the exact same thing. It's simply operating above the axis. When you create a sine wave, right? You set your X and your Y coordinate, and it starts this beautiful half arc dip below the Z point, below the zero. And then a miracle happens. It rises above the 0 point and it becomes a positive number. And you're like, how the fuck did a downgoing arch turn into a positive number? And it's the same way that pain becomes pleasure. Why? Because you attune yourself to the same noise, the same feelings, the same hurts, and you decide, I can take this. This is good information. I actually value this info. Oh, that flower smells wonderful. The chemo signal was just delightful. And when you trust your pain, you're moving into your pain. You're associating with it. And by associating with it, you're gaining its trust. The government moves in and says, yeah, but we're going to protect you from the hyena. We're going to establish law and order. We're going to pave these roads because God forbid anyone would build a road on their own. And all these things establish the symbiotic relationship that you have. And so pleasure simply becomes pain that is practiced. You practice pain and it becomes pleasure. Do you realize that standing up is that? The first time you stood up, you're like, this fucking hurts. This hurts. This hurts a lot. The bottom of my feet are really feeling a lot of weight right now. And your feet are like, why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to you? I'm like, a small area. Why can't you just lay on your back? Like, come on, that's so much better. It's because of the pain that you experience that you're able to build this tolerance, right? That you're able to gain it further. It's a throttling of sorts. Now, if you can accept this idea of pain, and I hope you can hear the positivity in this, that this is pleasure and pain are just this action potentials. They're action potentials. When your nerves send you signals, it's the Morse code. And you would think maybe intuitively that if you're in pain, the action potentials are just more voltage. Oh, it's more voltage. Or they're stronger, or it has like more amplitude. And none of that is fucking true. None of that. The action potential still has the same joules. You know, like I'm making this up. It's like 4 joules. It's like super small, just boop, boop. And if you get a lot of joules, really what you're doing is you're just putting a lot of traffic on the line. And when you're putting a lot of traffic on the line, then your entire system notices that you're complaining. And so the more action potentials that are sent, it's still the same signal. If it was to stroke the soft small of your back, okay, that sounds kind of creepy, but it's like if you were to like stroke your skin softly, the same action potentials would be sent. As if I had cut you with a nail. The only differences would be the frequency. That's the only difference. The amplitude, the circuitry is all the same. It's simply the space between the notes is less. It's the only difference. Orgasm, feeling a breeze. Same. Same. Oh, that's great. My friend, that's great. Okay, so now to get to the I hope you'll find this to be the sort of another gear in this, because we're going to start talking about time travel now. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like for you to consider these 3 parts of your brain. Before we get to 3, let's just think about it as 2 for right now. And I want you to think about the mythology of Prometheus and Epimetheus as the concept of foresight and hindsight, which I'm not telling you something you didn't know. That's built in the mythology. But that the forebrain and the hindbrain are the expression of the oracle mythology of these 2 ideas, that there is a living Prometheus inside of you, and that it is living in the future, and there is a living Epimetheus, inside you, and it's living in the past, and that its face is turned to the back, and Prometheus's face is turned to the future. And I'm not just saying this to be poetic. As we start to look at not just what the brain is, but what fucking reality is, you notice that you have different orbs that are purely focused on being a time traveler. So what is pain when it comes to memory? Because the answer, think about what pain is without memory, is kind of meaningless. It's a unique, novel experience that there's nothing to build off of. Oh, that hurts. 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 Every time you feel pain, it's a unique experience. You're like, oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. Suddenly you develop enough calories and you develop the ability to store the last pain that you experienced It's like a fucking miracle. And so you no longer say, oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. You do something different. You go, oh, that hurts. Hey, that hurts more than the last one. Wow, look at that. I experienced more pain than I did before. And then it gets hurt again. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That didn't hurt as much. Holy shit. Holy fuck, that was amazing. This, what I just did, this is a big bang. That's the big bang. Consciousness explodes in an instant. It turns into the largest free matter creature that you could ever see. A giant universe is born simply because you have the ability to remember one pain cycle before the one you just had. That's freaking huge, because this now gives you a trajectory. The reason why a bow and arrow works is because the bow is in point vertex A and the arrow is in vertex B, and you let go. In past gives you a trajectory to future. And without past, you have no trajectory. And without trajectory, you have no fucking identity. You have none. You are simply respond. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. And you're a Venus flytrap, you're a pore, you're like every single other vesicle that you might see that would open and close simply because the sun comes up. There's no free will even involved in that. You develop this whole other thing called the past. You fucking created the past in a pocket. You took a pocket inside your cells and you said, hey, I'm going to store fucking time in here. And your cells are like, no problem. We got you covered. We got you covered. And you created this phonological loop, this short-term memory. You didn't even need long-term memory. The very first thing you did was you developed short-term memory, and pain would have been your only brightness, your only color. The only saturation that you would have felt in the world would have been pain. And believe it or not, you used the hue of red to distinguish it. It's true that in every single life form that's ever existed, that has ever had an eye, the very first cones, the very first opsins that were ever developed, were distinguishing red. And why? Because of the wavelength of red. It's cheap. It's a cheap pain to drink. And when you drink that cheap pain, you're able to profit from it. How does this happen? Because the acorn is able to go, I don't like it here. I want to move a half inch to the right. And for the next million years, it's like, I'm going to develop a way to move a half inch to the right. I think I can. I think I can. I think, ow, that hurts. Ow, that hurt. Because all it has is pain. And so you start to see how pain becomes an evolutionary coach. That pain is the only thing that will ever move or motivate or gain or grow or send you anywhere on your way. That, for fuck's sake, y'all, vitriol has been with you since a blastocyst. From the very first moment that you were a cell and you started to learn these skills, you required the wisdom of vitriol to get you through that. And the only way that you could really focus on pain as wisdom is to remember it. Is to do the very last thing that you would think that a sensory organ would ever want to do, which is re-experience something that was unpleasant. You leaned into it. You brilliant fuck. You leaned into it. You're like, not only was that painful, I'm going to remember it. And you're a true Gnostic. You're like, look at how shitty my life is. I remember my last pain. Oh, and your very first identity is just this angst of just, I remember how painful it was before. Oh, back in your day, it was so much more painful than it is now, right? And you building an entire family, a heredity based on pain. I want you need to love pain at this point so I can move on. You need to romantically understand how beautiful pain has been. That it's the entire time, it's simply been information that's just been difficult for you to accept. And the difficulty in you accepting that pain has nothing to do with the pressure or the voltage or the amperage in those special action potentials. No, because they're all inside of you. All you're going to get is motorboat, right? Of action potentials, right? You're not going to get, hey, you're going to get. And if you approach motorboat right, it tickles. It's the funniest thing. If anyone's ever motorboated your belly as a child, it's funny. And if you're being tickled too much and you don't want to be tickled, what happens? The action potentials become pain, right? Suddenly the tickling becomes painful. It's stop. And you end up kicking someone in the face because the reptile in you simply say, I need this to stop. I need this to stop. Why? Because a long time ago, the acorn said, if I could move a half inch to the left, oh God, I feel so much better. And what does feeling better mean? The last pain was worse than this pain. And this pain was better than the last pain. And this new pain that I have now, oh my God, this new pain, it feels less than the previous pain. This is pleasure. I've just defined you what pleasure is. When you find yourself in a state of pleasure, it will be in a place, a space and time, a mode, a posture, an operandi, a symbiotic conglomerate, an atlas, a constellation where you are the furthest away from the strongest amount of pain that you've ever felt in your entire life. You would call that what pleasure is. I have no problem with you embracing pleasure, but I need you to understand what pleasure is. Pleasure is the cessation of constructive pain. Pleasure is the cessation of constructive pain. That means that pleasure is still pain. Pleasure is still pain. Pleasure is pain that you've gotten used to, that you're good at experiencing. You've gotten so good at experiencing that, you started to call it pleasure, you sick fuck. You're like, oh my God, I love how painful the red shift options are over here at sunset. And you're like, well, that's not what you said 7 million years ago when you were screaming your eyes out. It's like, make it stop, pull them out, right? And now you're just like, oh my God, this pain is so beautiful, sublime, right? You need to create a word for it. So your entire dimensionality is built into pain. And if you accept this secret, the next time you feel pain, you will have a different matrix for it. You will have a completely different trajectory for it, and it will change you. You will fall off porches. Weird shit will happen, and you will get to practice this. You already do. You're just not giving yourself credit for how far you've come. So this part of you, this epimetheus, the hindsight, the thing that's behind you, it's a bubble of memory, a bubble of what happened to me before I got here, right? This hindsight. And it's in contrast to the Prometheus, who's building an entire different reality. He's building an entire different reality. Are you ready for this? Are you sitting down? I can see you. Of course you are. Instead of this creature that's just like, I'm remembering everything that ever happened to me, you've got this creature that's like, I'm fucking fantasizing everything that's going to happen to me. I'm a freaking fantasy machine. I am rendering pain that I haven't even had before. Your Prometheus is creating time that doesn't exist. And your Epimetheus is honoring. Do you understand what memory is? To honor, right? So Epimetheus is building a reverence chest for all the pain you've experienced. And Prometheus is speculating on all the new pain you're going to have in the future. So you have two different time machines that are conglomerated into one. You literally have one head that's facing forward and one head that's facing back. This is not just a badass piece of AI art, if I don't mind saying so myself. This is not just a cool piece of art. This is literally who the fuck you are. This guy. It's so profound when you start to do the math of what this is. It's really, really profound. So Epimetheus avoids pain. The reptile lives in the now, and we are hallucinating in its shadow. I'm hoping that this statement will make more sense to you after we're done. The reptile lives in the now, and we, you and me, our Epimetheus, our Prometheus, is hallucinating its shadow. Epimetheus is, how do I avoid pain? And Prometheus is, how do I create pain? Remember, pleasure is a lazy kind of pain. So Prometheus wants to create the pain in his life. And because you have a finite number of minutes, a finite number of action potentials that are going to motorboat into your system, all the pain that you experience, your free will is, what flavor of pain would you like today? And it's a beautiful way of understanding exactly really where we are. Prometheus is the maker of man. Epimetheus is the maker of animal. This mythology difference is important because the animal in us will simply be one who carries the burden of our pain. The beast of burden is carrying the burden of the pain because it's below the horizon. The sine wave is below the horizon. It's getting ready to crest. And when it crests into the Prometheus. So you are an inhale, exhale of Epimetheus, Prometheus, Epimetheus, Prometheus, Epimetheus, Prometheus. If you even look at the intrinsic idea of what the cosmic breath is, it's literally the breathing in and out of time, the creating of this time machine, this bellows, so to speak, of what's to come. The mammal in you is the last to know and uses his ability to hallucinate in order to face what the reptile already sees. Your mammal has no choice but to write the script after the story's already been told. And the story's been told to you by men on the ground that were reptiles that were approaching it purely from a speculative standpoint of, was this the worst pain I've ever had, or was this not so bad? These are two different, it's not just two different systems, it's two different realities. It's a different reality. And the only thing they have in common is they share the spine, but one of them faces backwards. And it's fitting that your eyes are here. You don't see the eyes in the back of your head. Of course you don't. And you can't see what it is, because if you could see what it was, you would stop prometheizing. You'd be like, this is too painful. I can't freaking do this. You want to hallucinate about more pain? I can't do that. So you don't. And you don't have to, because the triune, there are three. Now I know I've been telling you two, but it's because I don't want to confuse us too much. I want to slow roll this idea because I think it's really important. Technically, there are three time machines inside of you. Iapetus, the present tense. This is your brain stem. This is your lizard brain. Epimetheus, this is your mammalian brain. I think if you picture this as a rat, you're going to have a much better time just understanding this. And Prometheus is your future. And I wouldn't picture that as a human. I'd picture that as the ape. And yet both of these are mammals, right? Different layers of the mammalian. There's only one reptilian, but it's much more complex than that because it's more about just limbic dominance. What is the limbic system doing? In the present sense, the limbic system isn't doing much at all. In the present state of the lizard, the limbic system is pure reactionary. If I hit your knee with a hammer, your foot goes up. It doesn't matter. I can say, okay, don't make your foot go up, and it doesn't matter. It's going to go up. If I hit you in certain spots on your spinal column, you're going to react. You're going to have a reaction to that. That is a reality. It's a reality that doesn't have the bubble of past or present that your Prometheus and your Epimetheus has. And it couldn't afford that. It couldn't have that reality even if it wanted to, because it's instantaneously busy. It's too busy being in the now being receptive to even have thoughts about what the future is, what the past is. And there are three of you inside of you. And the first of you, this atlas, is hooked and pinned directly to the present world. This is literally the creature strapped to the front of your Mad Max road vehicle. And the hood ornament to this is this inner you, this inner lizard. And all of your motor skills, all of your fast action skills are built into that. And it has a mind of its own. And that mind is on survival. And it's going to react long before your rat or your ape can have anything to say about it. And all they get to do is store what happened to it in the past or what happened to it in the future, which means Iapetus, this father of Atlas, the son of Kronos himself, the base root of your spine, is the only creature inside of you that sees all first. This is your first world. Every single thing that will ever happen to you will always and ever happen to you, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you train with your fast twitch muscles. No one will ever see the future as fast as this inner identity in you called the brainstem. And you can argue if you want. You can say, well, I'm in charge, I'm Prometheus, or I'm in charge, I'm Epimetheus. But this dude is the needle on the road. He's the needle on the record, right? He's the person directly sensing it all. And there's some mad respect there, because honestly, I don't think we could do it. As the brother of Kronos, the mythology of this Iapetus ruled the world during the Golden Age, but is now locked up in Tartarus. And think about what the basal ganglia is. It's this neural tube wrapped inside bone. It's trapped inside this cranial-spinal world of bone, separated from the world. It has no ability to move. Why? Because it's been tied and ransomed into these two different conglomerate identities that have built their kingdoms on its front and on its back. It sees neither the breeze nor the light of the sun in Tartarus, yet it senses all. It's directly connected to the world. Look at this creature. Look at how it's mounted to the top of Tartarus. The medulla oblongata is suspending this creature like a cobra. And at the very heart of the most delicate thing that this creature holds, dangling like it's like a sacred fruit, is this pituitary. The head is the thalamus, the most important network in your entire body. Every single thing that ever happens, that will ever happen, that has ever happened, that is ever allowed to happen, will have to be done through the thalamus. And this creature that you don't even know its name has all of the keys to this palace. Iapetus is the piercer, right? And if you remember my work on the Hebrew word for what the male was the piercer, the one who writes, the one who records, the one who actually stores, the needle that's actually experiencing this. This is someone that you don't know. You have a sense of who they are, but they don't even really have room for identity because it's just so hot. Where they live is so treacherous that they can't afford luxuries like identity, forethought, dread, or even memory. They're directly in the now. You know, we like to marvel about how much we like to be in the now, but I don't know if that's really where we want to be. My guess is it's sort of like a sailboat. The keel would be the now. You don't want to be down there. You don't. Trust me. They literally call it keel hauling. It's like the worst torture ever, is to be placed. They run a rope and they run you along the keel. And that's where the ice blade is. That's where the ice skate touches the ice, right? That's where the you're not going to be able to live there. No, the captain is behind the keel. He's behind what's happening. He's behind what's happening, and he's watching everything from one vista, right? And the only way that you could see the entirety of your ship is from the past. Be the only way. You wouldn't even know that you had a ship if you didn't have this sort of forethought, afterthought mixed into one, right? Very Janus. Good observation. Very much Janus. So this brings us to Atlas, the top of the brainstem. And the Oracle mythology is telling you the entire time. This guy Atlas holds the entire world on his shoulders. He's the entire he built the constellations, he built the hemisphere. And what is your brain filled with? But a bunch of they're neurological constellations now. When we start to track brain fog or also brain memories, we're looking for neurological constellations that are burned into something called qualia, which we'll get to in a second. And so the son of the Titan, Atlas is the son of Iapetus, the brother of Epimetheus and Prometheus. Is the oldest structures of the brain, right? The oldest Titans in the world. Many children, one of which was Calypso, she who conceals. Just think that's interesting sidebar there. The Atlantic Ocean itself is derived from Sea of Atlas. The name of Atlantis, mentioned in Plato's Timaeus dialogue, derived from Atlantis Nessos, literally meaning Atlas's island. Did you just hear that? Atlas's island. Atlantis, Atlas's island, which means if you follow Tartarus, Tartarus would open through the gates of Gibraltar, and the water would pour out into a giant ocean of cranial spinal fluid. And suspended in the center of this ocean would be this island, this island of Atlas. And it's the Oracle mythology is broadcasting to you what your brain is like, what your interior is like. It's showcasing you that in the finest detail, because honestly, there's a mythological treasure map that, evolutionarily speaking, however you want to define this term, you've had to follow the mythology to move yourself through the API and gain more limbic installs. You instantiate more limbic abilities to interpret certain chemo signals, and therefore you have a higher resolution, a higher bandwidth connection to the very, very essence of what you've called painful the entire time, which is why if we call it something different than pain, or if we change our relationship to the word pain, the window opens. The pupil dilates even more, right? It opens more. And Atlas holds it all. All of your habits are built inside of this, which makes sense because your habits, your procedural learning, you push to the forefront of present, of now. And so this identity, if you really start to want to get to know who this inner pons is, this inner Iapetus, I should say, it's going to be the one that you've trained the most through your entire life, through your Prometheus and your Epimetheus. This is your production-ready employees that are on the floor. They are at the heart of the needle. They are pressed in there, which means that these are going to be the best of you when it comes to your procedures, your habits, your motors, your responses. You're going to develop certain protocols, right? The protocol is going to be, we're going to install cameras around the perimeter, and the cameras are going to be recorded, and those are going to be uploaded to corporate every 3 weeks. And that all these things that you establish, those are the things that are being placed out there and installed into this atlas and actually used to press the needle on the road. Look at this chamber. See you. You're literally mounted on top of pyramidions. This first you, all of your cranial nerves are are going through your cathedral. Why? Because you're trusted. Iapetus is trusted with the most delicate wiring that your system has. The most important things that have to respond right away, that there's no hesitation for, that aren't left to illusions of pain or of pleasure, are handled directly on the road, because that's how important it is. This is your fire, your military, your police, your right, all of your basic needs. When the power is out and you see the trucks driving because the winter storm and they're driving for hundreds of miles, you're just simply hallucinating the inside of your mind and what it's like for the ponds to keep working even though it's cold outside, even though part of your system's shut down, that these other guys are out there. Oh, well, whatever it takes, wind, sleet, sand, or snow, well, it's nothing to stop the mail from coming through unless it's a holiday. When you break down who and what you are, you discover that sentience is 100% sentimental. There's no logic in this world. All there is sentiment. And I say that because the only way that you could practice swallowing pain over and over again to where you decide, oh no, that's the sun. Turns out that's not pain at all. That's just the sun. The only way you could change the word pain into sun is to be sentimental about it. It's the only way. You would have had to have had a pre-memory of what to expect. More importantly, you would have even had to have a cycle where you didn't have it for a while. You got to appreciate the sensation of not having the pain of the sun in your eyes. And for the very first time, you start to go, yeah, that sun's a real pain in the ass, but well, I kind of miss him. And isn't that the very first clue that maybe the pain is being misinterpreted? Is the very first notion that maybe you miss pain, that maybe you miss certain experiences, shows you how powerful hallucination Epimetheus and Prometheus are. Every single thing that you do or encounter and decided to memorize, you've only decided to keep, it's a keepsake because it is sentimental. It has value to you, and so you stored it again in your memory. Every single part of you is sentimental, and that should be bigger than we understand, because it's showing you that the essence of who you truly are is built on a matrix of sentimentality, not longevity, not even survival. Sentimentality. Guys, your entire experience comes through these 4 simple protein molecules. I am not making this up. The limbic universe, which is every single thing that you build your sentimentality upon, comes in you through protein molecules that detect one of 4 things: light, motion, chemical, and temperature. And you've built this entire fucking place out of these 4 Legos. And you did that by sentimentally connecting to each of them, finding them peculiar enough to where you build light maps inside your brain. Your phonological loop is creating a spatial awareness map of where you can get the best chemicals, where your proteins are going to trigger the right amount of pace of action potentials that are going to send you the right tone. Do you understand? This is music. All of these protein molecules are only going to be interpreted in the brain through the exact same signal, the digital signal of action potential sent through the potassium action. It's like this weird chemical electrical transaction, right? It stays electrical, then it turns into electrochemical, then sometimes it has to stay chemical, then it has to turn back. But it's basically every single possible thing that could ever possibly happen to you. It's going to happen through these 4 protein molecules. That's it. And that's profound. It's profound because it tells you how much more is there. This is why I argue for the conscious universe. What I mean is the idea of there's, and I haven't been able to put my brain around it because it's so complex, but a conscious terrain, a terrain that we could somehow describe, we could start to think about on that has conscious landmarks. It doesn't have spatial landmarks. It has conscious landmarks because the spatial landmarks are just protein landmarks. That's all they are. No offense. But Mount Everest is a protein landmark. It's literally the place where you go where your proteins tell you, I'm really fucking high up. I'm really high up here. And it's cold. A conscious terrain doesn't look like that. The conscious terrain says at this point, at this time, at this place, at Red Rocks Amphitheater, this band is playing and all these people are gathering right here for this moment. This spore has erupted in space-time right here in this spot, and it's only going to be here for 2 hours and it's gone. That's a conscious terrain. The terrain changes. It changes so serendipitously that we are not able to build a framework around it. So we gave up a long time ago and we said, let's just try and build. What can we build? Well, I know if I stand over here, it smells like shit. I can use that. All of us can use that. And so we don't build a terrain built off consciousness. We built a terrain off these proteins. There's nothing wrong with that. It's cute. It's cute. It's adorable. But when we really start to look at what's important, what is really more important? Is it really these proteins? Or is it the conscious feelings, the conscious eruptions that occur when they're seasoned with these proteins? Because there's a whole new product that's occurring, and that product is your consciousness imbuing itself. You instantly go to a moment and you create 3 time machines instantly as soon as you get there. First thing you do when you get there, you create a time bubble. I'm here now. And you can experience all the different facts that come in, and you notice that some of the data that comes in has this weird conglomeration where there's this thing called a festival and all these people show up in furry clothing at this certain spot, but only during this spot. Then this music happens and everyone goes home and there's all this litter. And you're like, well, what is that? What is that? Like in the intrinsic importance of life, where is there more depth? Because the depth is going to be inside the conscious thinking processes of every single person that's assembled in that spot in a tight conglomerate. So that's like a peak. It's like a mountain that sprung up in the nebulous syrup. And that mountain, let's call Burning Man, right? And it's just over here now. And it goes away. As we explore this new terrain, I think we start to build a infrastructure, not on the static protein chains that are giving us what we want to believe in this absolute reality, but we start to build on something more important, which is that where's the flux? The flux, all of the birds seem to be aware that they have to move a lot. That if a bird wants to have a good time, they're going to be like traveling. They're like, what are you doing? I'm a bird. I'm going to, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm fucking going over there. Why are you going over there? Because it's fucking fun. That's what we do. This is what we do. They don't, the beauty of the lack of being a true warm-blooded creature is you have no choice but to mitigate the atmosphere around you to place yourself in a situation where your action potential stop bitching at you so much, right? So every single migratory effect is dictating and placing you in a place where you find this conscious landscape that you wasn't there before. It wasn't there. I swear to you, if it wasn't for the internet and I tried to tell you about Burning Man, you'd just say I was crazy. Be like, you're fucking insane. No, I swear, man. You go, it's called Black Rock, and you go to this desert, and like, you could take them there and be like, it was right here. Oh, dude, 80,000 people were here. We burnt down this giant 6-story tall wooden man. Yeah, sure you did. I swear to fuck, man. It was there. We can't even fathom this because we're dealing with a conscious landscape that we've never touched before. This is the final frontier. We've never been there before, which is why there's this needle. And this needle has your past and your future. And it's this tricorn sitting on top of that record playing your reality for you. That's it. It's not binary, it's tetranary. So, most of us think we have eight senses, and it's fine. Technically, there's like 40 of them, but they're like, I have a sense that there's ammonia in the room. Like that's one of the senses. So it's like, some of them we don't necessarily pay attention to one, but a huge one, a very big one, a very, 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 very big sensation, which is sadly placed in a single category, is called interoception. This concept of knowing the inner status of your body. And this is our final frontier. I don't mean to say final, there'll always be another final frontier, but this is our latest final frontier. How about that? That you and I are learning to listen to an entire universe inside us. And that there's an appetite, there's a weather, there's a breath, there's a respiratory rhythm, there's a heartbeat. And certain things we can hear quite well, it's no problem. Certain things we have to really listen in on. And that there's all these different layers and all these different events happening because it's a giant cosmos in there. It's giant. And that what we're calling one of our senses is actually just probably the pinhole into this new landscape I'm talking about. Because what I'm saying to you is that we know the cheap way. There, I don't mean to keep using Burning Man because I haven't even been to Burning Man. So don't label me as well. I don't mind you. I'm just letting you know. But there's more than one way to get to the festival. One way is you go physically violate a car's transmission, or God forbid you rent a U-Haul and you drive that out there. That's one way to go. Another way is to that we've just learned is to connect yourself via Wi-Fi and virtually attend an event. But another way is probably within. If you consider that, if you think about the festival, if you think about a festival, if you think about an event, if you think about an experience, you go to that place in your body, but your place is so vast that you end up in Des Moines, Iowa. You're like, I was trying to get to, actually, Des Moines is probably pretty big. You're in the middle of Iowa where no one's ever been. And you're like, I thought this was Black Rock City, and it's not. You don't intuit yourself that well because the precision is too fine, right? If you've ever played with a microscope and you're looking on the slide and you're like, how do I find the hair on the slide? It's like, well, you go up 17 miles, and then you scrub the slide 17 miles to the north, right? Which is like a centimeter. You are tuning your assemblage needle, those time machines. And then when you go out and find events, you're looking for things inside your body, places inside your body. And when you focus in on those, you find this flow state, right? And you go on tour. You find the rhythm of your body and you know where it'll be next. You know where it'll come next. This is a special kind of calligraphy. It's a special kind of art. You're living in this, what the closest we might call it would be this rock star mentality, but typically it's addled with drugs, but it's this idea of everywhere you go is the party. Everything that you do is the vortex of the cosmos. And the reason why is because you're in tune with this interoception. The place inside your body is a microfish. Sorry for you younger people, but it's a microfish to the entire cosmos. And if you want to pull up that microfish, right, you're going to pull up one of 10,000 pieces of film, and you're going to put that piece of film in the viewer, and you're going to scan that viewer. And inside that one piece of film is, and 17 newspapers for an entire year. Find the word chrysanthemum, James. Go. And after, I'm going to be like, I can't do that. It's really hard. It's really hard. I will navigate this world. We'll go through it word by word, paragraph by paragraph. And if I happen to find the word chrysanthemum, I'm going to place a note about it because I'm going to use my precious memory and I'm going to share it with someone else. I'm going to say, hey, if you pull out this microfiche and move it here and move it here, which literally means get on a plane, turn west at Iowa, and keep going for 68 miles. Boom, you found the word chrysanthemum. How'd you do that? I just was out, scanning the microfiche. It's where we are now. We have a long way to go. Hey, it's great. I'm not even saying let's get there. Like, let's enjoy the journey, because enjoying the journey is I think really ultimately how to find that needle and how to stay directly in the right chair, you know, as far as in your body, how you actually want to keep receiving this world. You have 3 gears. And more importantly, the people that you encounter in your world, whatever they are, these people that you encounter, that you manifest as people, that you hallucinate as people, even because you are hallucinating them as people. I'm not saying they're not real, but I'm saying that you have no choice to hallucinate them as this conglomerate that, as I showed you in slide 1, that once you die, doesn't actually mean anything died. It just means that you stop calling yourself a collective whole. There are 3 gears of man, though. You can shift into arouse, you can shift into coast, and you can shift into relax. Every single function is going to be this simple, and it should be, because keep in mind, every single thing you experience is going to be one of 4 protein channels, just one of 4. So it would be just as believable to understand that every reaction is really going to boil down to, should I arouse more? Should I coast more? Or should I relax more? We don't understand how easy this is to change gears. I'm guilty of this probably more than anyone. I get into a certain gear and I call it the Taurus in me, but why would we fucking change shit? Things are going great. And if I keep changing stuff, I'm just going to turn into Mr. Changes a lot. And I'd rather just learn how to enjoy the weather where I'm at. I'm not saying it's right. It's the gears of man and learning to change them. I don't want to strip my transmission. That's my excuse. Wrapped around this, the very, very first thing that Iapetus has is you blindfolded him. You wrap this caudate nucleus around him. And by wrapping this, you put his head in a bag. And at the front of this device, we tell the body no. And at the back of this device, we tell the body yes. And we're constantly secreting this idea of, I can bribe you and I can punish you. I can bribe you and I can punish you. I can bribe you and I can punish you. And it doesn't work any other way. Biggest lesson I've had to learn is I cannot symbiotically work with people and just bribe them. It just doesn't work. In fact, you'll learn to just simply not work with people if you're not willing to punish them too. One of the biggest lessons, even lately, is that how do you critique someone and still have them stay in your life? How do you, because if you gently try and say, hello, great to see you. Hi, I'm having some issues with this. And then you say that over and over and over again, and it just doesn't come through. The only way to build any kind of system that's going to have these time machines is going to have this caudate nucleus, you're wrapping yourself around the experience and you're telling it it's either yes or no. It's profoundly sad when you compassionate what Iapetus is going through in there, because not only is his needle, not only is his nose touching the road, we literally got a bag over his head, and we're punishing him, poor guy. Which brings us to this idea: what is this fear of God, and why was it so important to demonstrate while we're building civilization? if you think about the essence of what church is, it, we still have it. It's just socially just been distributed differently, but everything's still the same. On the prairie, church was the place where you could come prove to the rest of the people that you could sit and be civilized during something that maybe was boring for an hour. And that by you being able to come to that room and do that and not fart, or maybe fart, it depends on where you are, but that if you were to follow some sort of rapport, that you're participating in the most crucial reptilian ritual ever, which is the establishment of predictability. So church becomes the absolute first pass at us building symbiotic connections between ourselves. That we needed to create something like church simply so we could establish normalcy. That if even though I might be menacing because you've never seen me before, I'm going to come and I'm going to sit next to you for exactly an hour and you're not going to die. And that you and I are maybe profoundly distant from that, just how comforting that is. Just how civilization would require something like that. And so when we start to look at these ideas of the fear of God, I think we're really talking about this base root, this basal ganglia of, look, you got a basal ganglia. I need to know if you got it under control or not. Do you have that guy's head in your bag or not? And the ceremony of church is the proving of that, basically. It's just a showing of that. You know, guys, when you really look at it, there's really no such thing as thinking at all. That every process that you might call a thought is simply going to be a limbic reaction to some sort of Iapetus, Epimetheus, or Prometheus. Their experience is pushed into you, and that your neocortex makes some sort of judgment about it. And so this judgment is purely built on, what were the feelings that I had? They're not really feelings, because that would be minus thought, but feelings are thought. Limbic thought. Guess what? Limbic thought. Your emotions are limbic thoughts. That's all. Your limbic organs are somehow trying to portray or convey to you, here's what I'm experiencing in the most compact, compressed way I can possibly say. Why? Because no one's going to listen to your nose if it's like, hey, I got a message for you. Yes, what's the message? Oh, 110, when the nose could just say, I smell asparagus, dude. There's asparagus. I smell asparagus. Right? So every single limbic system that you have is going to find the necessity to tap into language, which is why a long time ago I tried to find an example of where someone who grew up without language, and you can't. It's impossible. Do you know why? Because you're born with language. I'm sorry, but you are. Your brain center is born with it. It's born with it. It's not taught. It's not installed by, oh, the public schools. No, you're born with it. And it's either it atrophies and goes away, or it doesn't. Same thing for your olfactory, which we talked about, right? All right, inside your mouth. First thing you do when you're born. Let's cut that shit off. I don't want to know the truth. I don't want to know what's going on here. Feelings. Nothing more than feelings, right? These are feelings. They're thoughts and they're feelings. Whoa, feelings. Whoa, feelings. I can stop. Why is visual direction recomputed in the cortex after it was just computed in the retina? What? So when your eyes see something, for whatever reason, the inside your retinal wall goes ahead and processes the direction, the movement. It takes that information, including the movement, and then it sends it back to the occipital. This is what we think happens. If you've read The Eye of Ra, you know, I think maybe it works backwards. It's probably simulcast. That's anyway. So it goes back to your occipital lobe. And you know what your occipital lobe does? It says, let's interpret direction again. Let's just do that again. And your retinal wall's like, dude, I just did that math. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm going to count it again. Make sure I'm not going to give you your drugs until I count the money again. And you're like, but why are you making me count again? It's like, because it's a drug deal. And this is, you don't know how it works, but why is it doing that? Why is it doing that? Like, like, why waste all those calories? You know, I'll tell you why. Because there's two different identities that need that information. Yeah, two. That's right. Iapetus gets it first. He needs it right away, right? And then your occipital lobe gets it. Now, you could argue over whether Epimetheus or Prometheus. I think they both get it, but you're getting the same information. And I'm sorry, this dude just got out of the hospital. I'm really, really glad to hear that he did that. And um, but both of them get that information, but they're not able to. They're forced to recompute it because they're in a different reality. They're building a matrix from a different reality. Iapetus does not have time to think about identities, who's who, what's what, right? It doesn't need that. It needs that motion purely for stimulus response. But there's another part of you that actually would maybe reinterpret something as simple as motion, which, oh, bear with me, big thought. What if motion, not emotion, what if motion, what if the movement of things are just limbic input? When you're tripping balls, when you're, if you don't, sorry, women, when you're tripping ovaries, when you're like in that state, the world melts. It melts into this fluid dynamic, this, you don't really know what's real, do you? And when you come back to these protein chains, you're going to find that on the doorway of every single one of these protein chains that's listening to data is a space gap, a spark gap in between where foreign material is allowed to insert itself into your interpretation. Which is probably why Iapetus is like, I'm not trusting shit that the occipital lobe says, because there are so many ghosts in the machine between now and then that there's no fucking way that I'm going to be able to trust you with this. Dude, I'm out here on the needle. I got my nose on the grindstone. I can't do that. I need my own data. And so something as intricate as motion. Yeah, this might be more profound to you if this isn't hitting, if you think more about the memory. What I mean is that the Epimetheus is the one that remembered the last pain it had. And you do understand that motion is built on memory, right? You do know that there's no such thing as motion without memory. You would not be able to determine vector if you had no memory. There would simply be, no, the ball's there. No, the ball's here. No, the ball's here. The ball's here. The ball's here. The ball, you wouldn't even have ball, right? There's nothing else but the now. Iapetus is nothing but hallucinatory. All he can do is, he doesn't even have time to say, is this even a correct feeling? Or is this correct isn't even a word? Is this, how does this relate to the last? It can't do it. How does this relate to what might happen? Oh, it can't do it. You can't do any of those things. There's no time. Every time he tries to pull himself a bubble in time, he can't. Time pushes itself. Do you know why it pushes itself? Because the action potential, the space between the notes, is so small, so tiny that he can't fit. He can't build a bubble and store information inside that bubble because there's not enough space for him to do it, right? It's not there. Oops, share. There are extra pyramidal tracks in the spinal cord. I freaking love this. I love this. I hope Mo, I don't know if Mo's here, but someone remind me to timestamp this to Mo, because if you look at how the information passes up and down through the tracks of the spinal cord, it forms two pyramids. Anatomy even calls them this, the pyramidal track and the extrapyramidal track, and it fucking looks like this. It's the Star of David right in your central spinal column. I'm not kidding. Look at these triangles. You see, you got the lumbar, sacral, thoracic, cervical, right? You got these three, and you got those three. So what's happening? Invoking your efferent nerves are going down, and your sensational nerves, the afferent ones, the ones that are collecting information, are going up. Do you see the two triangles? Do you see them? So as above, so below is literally built into the information that's coming up and down your spinal column. And you can see the red tracks forming one triangle, right? And the blue tracks forming the other. And it's, again, this is the Oracle mythology. It's showcasing you all those things. And this is Tartarus, right? This is through Tartarus, through the essence of Iapetus, flows this information. When you really start to look at this inner you, this inner essence in the now, it kind of looks like this. This is the autonomic reflexes that are unconscious motor reflexes relayed in the organs and glands of the CNS. That there's a certain posture that the body enters into when it enters into a certain state of shock, or more accurately for what we're talking about, a certain state of association where the body loses its time machine, and it sends itself back into the essence of now, the essence of pure presence, and that your body gets into this posture. And if you notice the decorticate posturing at the top is a lot like how you would sleep. I'm talking about your hands. That when we tend to go to sleep, we tend to curl our hands like this. But this curling, this is what the present looks like. This will be the only way that we could experience the present, as a singular, solitary, firm needle that's standing up like this. Lazarus reflex is another case where the body will naturally enter into this kind of pose. And I think that's just giving us a clue to that identity. Remember, you don't have past or present, so you don't need movement. And if you don't need movement, you would want to form some sort of a shape that would give you the best longevity, the best chance of survival. And this is a very core pose, you know? And it's antenna-esque. It's receptive, right? You're extended as long as you can, you're receiving, but none of your appendages are out to get snagged on things. It's a very, I find it a very telling pose. When we start to tap all these things, you know, for example, the autonomic nervous system is a component of the peripheral nervous system that regulates involuntary physiological processes. I want you to think about this. That, you know, of course, you know, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your respiratory, your digestion, four hugely important things are happening, and they're in charge by an entity that's not you. You can't be trusted with those things. You're going to fucking sign off for at least 8 hours a day. You're fucking not even there. You're checked out. So these major systems are happening, and you really have no control over them. So everything that I'm saying should be intuitively true. And probably the biggest clue, one of the biggest clues at all, guys, is sexual arousal. Why is sexual arousal an involuntary physiological process? Hey, I'm just a caveman. I thought the whole reason why we were here was to learn how to pass our seed and survive. And you're telling me that sexual arousal is not going to be something that I can just turn on? Why not? You mean I can't choose who I'm attracted to? That's fucking loco. Like if you look at this from the top down, right? Like, oh, I'm a fighter pilot. I bought the F-22 fighter. It cost me $17 million and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, you can't turn right. Sorry. Can't turn, but if you just turn left, you'll still get there. Just do a really long left. Just keep doing lefts. So 3 lefts is a right, 3 lefts makes a good right, I think. Yeah. Why is the essence of our survival not placed in the hands of us being able to just be like, hey, I'm sexually aroused right now. And, I've seen a few porno movies. I don't know how they do that. I'm always astounded. I'm like, what do you do if you come to work and you're just like, not feeling it, Betsy? I mean, Betsy, there's nothing wrong with you, but I'm just not like, how does that conversation even happen? And how are these people doing that? Like, it's telling you where this sentience is, but more importantly, it's telling you where it's not. 5 of the most key things that could ever happen with you. And you don't even have permission to turn on that light switch. There's like a piece of tape that says, do not turn this light switch. And you're just like, okay, I guess I won't do that. Heart rate, your fucking heart, your digestion, your respiratory, right? Yeah, your blood pressure. And your thunk, right? None of those. You don't get to do any of those. That's horrible. Oh, there you are, Mo. Hello, Mo. I'm gonna have to stop because the next part just needs more time. So I hope you're okay. But I didn't actually know how far I was going to get tonight, but I think it's a good, actually, this is a good slide to end it on. I'll pull this up because you can get to know all of these kingdoms. Your body contains 3 anatomically distinct kingdoms. They're anatomically distinct. They do not touch. I mean, okay, they touch, but they're not relying on each other. 3 completely different kingdoms: parasympathetic, sympathetic, and enteric. And the reason why I'm not going to like go into these now is because I'd rather us wait and do it next time, because I think once we really start to understand these regions, these kingdoms, why they're so different, why they're so completely they almost contradict each other. They don't almost, they do. And that every single system in your body is going to be a contradiction, because there's no other way to function in this world. And I'll tell you, not to be so reductionary, but if you learn microcircuitry, the first thing you learn about every single circuit you build is you're going to have an excitatory and an inhibitory wire to every single motor, every single sensor, every single device. You cannot just say, hey, go out and have fun. There's no free energy device. Actually, there is free energy device, but it takes 2 wires, a red wire and a black wire. Technically, all devices that work are free energy devices. We just can't figure out how to keep coal putting in them, because the energy flows. It's there. It freaking opens up and we're like, hey, that's great. It's very similar to where we are in reality right now. Understanding, if you can picture that you're only seeing things through 4 protein fingerprints, we're not even looking at the world, y'all. We're not even seeing it. We're on this Quincy back channel thing where we come in later and we dust the place for prints and we just look at the prints and that's it. Very different world. We're out of time. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Holy cow. Holy cow. That was fucking amazing.
Oh, good, Chris.
Very, very, I enjoyed that.